First thing, I like to get some definitions together. Um, I do this in a way so we can be all on the same page. First off, what is the definition of belief? According to Wikipedia, a belief is the mental acceptance or conviction that a proposition, idea, or claim is true or real. So basically, if somebody proposes something to you, then your belief is whether the idea, claim, or true is real. Okay? So, when we begin to talk about our belief in Jesus, we have to first believe if he actually lived. So, we're going to have to gather evidence of, whether he was alive. We know for a fact that there was no bones, no crypt, no any of that type of DNA evidence or anything of that sort, because he rose from the dead. Now, obviously that means he actually rose from the dead, not spiritually rose from the dead. Because if that's the fact, then we all raised from the dead. He actually raised from the dead the same way Lazarus rose from the dead. The same way he rose Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus actually rose from the dead and lived for, I forgot exactly how many years, but it was several years after he died. And I don't know how much evidence that is. So let's be clear. I need to establish this to establish a belief system. Next, let's talk about a ritual. According to Wikipedia, a ritual is a structured, repeated sequence of actions performed in a specific, deliberate way. So, a ritual will be brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth, maybe you brush your teeth differently than I brush my teeth. It's not too many ways you can brush your teeth, but some people don't brush their tongue. I brush my tongue. I don't ritualistically brush my tongue all the time because I don't like to gag like that. So I only brush my tongue in the middle of the day after I've eaten or something like that. A ritual for some people is flossing. I floss. I didn't always floss. That wasn't always my ritual. But you get it. A ritual is something that you repeat every single day. One of my rituals is to wake up in the morning, take a shower, and brush my teeth. That is a ritual. So, what would the next thing be? I would think the next thing would be a ceremony. According to Wikipedia, a ceremony is a formal, often traditional, or set of symbolic acts performed to recognize an important occasion, milestone, or transition. So, a ceremony would be to go to a prom, or to go to church, or to, I don't know, go to a birthday party would be a ceremony. And there are beliefs that support the reason why you would have those ceremonies. There are also rituals that go along with those ceremonies. So you have a belief, you have a ceremony, and then you have rituals that help you conduct that ceremony. So now, I think we're going to get into the next definition, which is culture. What is culture? The reason why we're going to do this is because Culture has to do with your beliefs, your rituals, and your ceremonies. So, according to Wikipedia, a culture refers to the shared beliefs, values, customs, behaviors, and artifacts that are characterized by a group or society. So, let's, because this gets a little dicey. Uh, a culture is your music, a culture is your belief system. So there are different cultures that are involved with Christianity. You have Southern Baptist, you have Methodist Baptist, you have Mormons are Christian, Seventh-day Adventists, and so on. So they have a different culture that is involved with their belief system of the same King James version of the Bible that we use. You got the Hebrew Israelites. They use the Christian Bible, and they're not even Christian. So this is the reason why I'm bringing all of these definitions into our clear vision, so we have an idea. So when I'm talking to you, I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm sure that some of you probably will. Communication is an art, and I'm still trying to learn that. But I digress. So you have certain values that are considered in certain cultures. I'm going to talk about foundational Black Americans. Our values are, in my opinion, very weak. They've gotten weaker over time. I think, in my opinion, they've gotten weaker because of our financial things that we've been going through. Even though I don't believe that foundational Black Americans are economically poor. I don't believe that we're financially struggling, because we definitely, our dollar is extremely powerful. It's just that it doesn't circulate back into our society. It doesn't bounce back to us. We spend our money outside of our society. So the illusion is that we don't own anything. You see what I'm saying? So then you got certain artifacts. What do our artifacts tell us about? They bring us back to slavery. See? Now, the reason why I'm saying all of these things is not to focus on slavery or on the Black struggle or have a pity party or anything of any of these natures. What I'm trying to do is focus the issue so I can show you how to use the Bible. And in my later videos, I am going to be actually reading the Bible and discerning the Bible in a way. Am I using the right word? Discerning? I'm not sure. But I'm going to be analyzing the Bible in a way in which you can use it to make your life powerful. I'm using the Black experience as an example. We've all been down and out. We've all been slaves in some kind of way. We all are really experiencing the same things. Now, Black people are experiencing those things, those trials and tribulations on the highest level on the planet. These are facts. This is not something I'm just saying. I'm just not saying anything. These are facts. So I'm using us as an example so that other people, including Asian people, including European people, including Hispanic people, everybody can use this, because we all read the Bible. Christianity itself is corrupted, but the worship of the Most High, what I call Yahuwah, should be, or Yahweh, I should say Yahweh, it should be increased. The worship of Yahweh is where the power lies. So now we got certain artifacts. Our artifacts bring us all the way back to slavery. And then we got certain characteristics, dress, the way we speak to each other. Certain cultures down south are a little different than out west. Certain cultures out west are different than up north. Because we have the internet, all these cultures are meshing together and making a whole nother culture. You have a culture that is absorbed within the internet, gaming, everything else. So we got culture, we have beliefs, we have rituals, and we have ceremonies. Now let's focus. If I was a colonizer, if I was owned a plantation and I had slaves and I need to control my slaves, even if I was a military leader and I need to control my soldiers, I would have to attach myself to all of these things that we're talking about today. I would have to attach myself to your belief systems. I would have to attach myself to your culture. Maybe reinvent a culture that I control. And I would have to attach myself to your rituals and ceremonies. Think of it like this. Say you're a student, right? You've been a student all your life, well, for a long time, not all your life, but you've been a student for the last 6 years. You've done your internship. Now it's time for you to become an actual lawyer. But you're not a lawyer yet. You only know law in theory, even though you passed the bar, even though you know everything about being a lawyer. It's still a culture that you have to be introduced to, I meant to say. There is a language that goes with that culture. There is a way of dress that goes with that culture. It even goes all the way down to there is a body language that goes along with that culture. Now, you have to become a lawyer. Just because you know law doesn't make you a lawyer. Becoming a lawyer means you understand the culture. Within that culture, you have certain ways you have to politic with other people. You have to know when and how to use the language that you've learned in college. You have to become a lawyer. My point is, there's a culture with being a lawyer. There's a culture with being a Christian. There's a culture that comes with being a Southern Baptist Christian. There's a culture that comes with being a Mormon or a Hebrew Israelite or a Jew. All of these things come with culture. So if I'm trying to colonize, if I'm trying to control, I have to control this culture. This is the reason why the King James Version of the Bible, why I say can be a form of control. And what you have to do is you have to take out the control and put in the power of the Bible. Now, the Bible has a certain culture that goes with it if you read it the right way. The problem is most people don't read the Bible. The Bible is, well, we're going to say the culture of reading the Bible is having someone read it for yourself. I meant read it to you, I meant to say. The ritual is to go to a ceremony in which someone interprets the Bible to you. You go to church on Sunday. Someone reads you the Bible. They tell you what the Bible says and what it means. They tell you what Jesus said and what it meant to the people he was talking to, whatever that is in the Bible. They tell you, and when they tell you, they control you. You can't have it both ways. You have to understand that the people that are standing in that pulpit are usually just puppets. They're usually being controlled by something, whether it be the cross and the crown, charismatic movement, whether they're Masons, whatever it is, they're usually being controlled. Jesuits, there are rabbis. It's all a method of control. But unless you actually read the Bible for yourself, you don't deserve to have power. You deserve to be a slave. All you have to do is read the Bible. Now, I get it. Reading the Bible is not that easy. You have to read it over and over and over before it actually gets into your mind. It gets into your soul. I believe you have to pray before you read the Bible. I believe that should be part of your ritual, to pray and ask the Most High to give you the discernment that you need to understand it. Because the way the Bible is written, it can mean one thing or it can mean another thing. What exactly was the tree of life? What exactly was that? What did it mean when God said he looked over the waters? What were the waters? Was the earth round or was it flat? When I say flat, I mean in the shape of a terrarium. It says clearly in the Bible that there was a firmament. Now, I've heard some people say that firmament is just an expansion. I've heard other people say that firmament is the Van Allen belt. And then I have other people that says it's a dome that's over the earth. What is it and how is it that you understand and interpret these things? Take control back to you. Stop giving away your control. Simply read the Bible. Simply pray to God. Have your own relationship with God. Okay, before I start getting on my soapbox and really start preaching, let's get back into some real teaching. Now, should I go into King James himself? Or should I go into proving whether Jesus actually lived or not? I think it's more important that we prove the existence of God, or the fact that he didn't exist. Now, let me ask you this. Would it cause cognitive dissonance if you could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't exist? Think about this. What is it that lets you know that George Washington existed? I don't know too much about George Washington. I'm not going to lie to you. So I don't know how long it's been since he died. I know it's been over 100 years. I know that. I know it's been probably more than 200 years. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. It's been a long time. It's been 3 generations. How could you actually prove that he was alive? It's pretty simple. He has a burial site, for one, right? You can go to that burial site. If you really needed to prove it, you can dig his bones up and analyze those bones for DNA and find out that that is him. That's for one. You can't have that with Jesus because Jesus rose from the dead. He actually pushed the stone back from the tomb and walked out. No eyewitnesses, no body, no bones, no marks on the tomb, no nothing. So, how do we actually prove whether he lived or not? Okay, so I think I'll start with the good news first. I think I'll prove first that he did exist. Let's begin. Fact number 1. You have Paul. Paul knew Jesus and his brother, James, and he also wrote about it. He wrote about this about 20 to 30 years after the death of Jesus, but he still wrote about it. Flavius Josephus also wrote about Jesus and James, although he wrote about him about 93 years after Jesus died. 116 years after Jesus died, Tacitus also mentioned Jesus. When he wrote about Jesus, he referred to him as Christos. He stated he was executed in the reign of Tiberius. He also stated he was executed by Pontius Pilate, or Pontius Pilate was responsible for his death. 200 years after Christ's death, a man named Pliny the Younger, I don't know if y'all ever heard of that, he describes Christians as worshiping Christ. Let's not forget the fact that we know that for a fact that Pontius Pilate existed. So if Pontius Pilate existed and they recorded that he was responsible for the death of Jesus, then we got to put that in as proof. According to Wikipedia, Tacitus on Jesus. Roman historian and politician Tacitus referred to Jesus, his execution by Pontius Pilate, and the evidence of early Christians in Rome in his final work, Annals. Okay, now let me try to read that quote to you. Bear with me, it's difficult. I have to basically read and memorize it because I'm on my phone. I quote, "Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations called Christians by the populace. Christos, from whom the name had its origins, suffered extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hand of one of his procurators, Pontius Pilate, and a mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of evil, but even in Rome." Now note it, this is written by a Roman who disliked Christians. All right? He admitted that Pontius Pilate ordered the execution of who he called Christos. Okay, now, so I want to give you guys enough evidence because I want you guys to walk away from this feeling confident that Jesus existed. And I'm not trying to force an opinion on you because, like I said, there is no body. He rose from the dead. There is no writings. There is no actual evidence other than these people who were writing about him. But noted, these people had no investment in actually lying. It didn't help them at all if they were lying. So why would they? You know, these are the things that I came up with. So now let's read Josephus, who was a Jewish scholar. Now, the Jews do not really, they don't rock with Jesus like that. At least the Orthodox Jews don't. I mean, you do have Messianic Jews also. So I got to speak for the Jews. I actually have, I really respect the Jews. Now, as far as the Jews that, you know, they're Talmudic Jews, I'm not going to really speak on. But I really have a deep connection with Jews. So I don't want to get this twisted. But Josephus seemed more like a Talmudic Jew than anything. I'm not sure. I haven't done all of my history. My point is, Josephus had no reason. He wasn't invested in anything that would cause him to lie. So I quote, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonders and works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure, He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. Now I got to stop right there because I saw in the writings that they're trying to say that certain things were added. So I'm just trying to respect the quote. I don't want to say anything wrong because this is a really sensitive subject. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal, men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at first did not forsake him, for he appeared alive to them the third day. Again, I gotta reiterate, I think what I'll do is I'll go back through that quote, and I'll go back and show you, or I'll read to you where they say that this may have been altered a little bit. Okay, but it's inspiring to hear this verse, especially from a Jew. As the divine prophets have foretold, these and 10,000 other things. Wonderful things. I want to get this quote right. These and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him and the tribe of the Christians, so named for him, are not extinct at this day. Hooray, hooray for Josephus. That was beautiful. Okay, y'all. Now here's the quote. All right, so I just want to be fair, okay? Here we go. Most scholars believe that Josephus originally wrote about Jesus, but some Christian scribes later added phrases like he was the Christ and he appeared alive to them. So, there again, if these Christian scholars did this, it's disappointing because this is the desecration I'm talking about. You got to stop going in there. This is cognitive dissonance. This is the cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. But they're not going to do that, because if they do that, it will cause them to have to deal with the things of cognitive dissonance. Either they're going to change their ways and they're going to agree with what Josephus said, or they're going to do something devious, like change the words in what he said. It's horrendous, but I digress. They didn't need to do it because, like it says, even after removing these parts of the passage, it still confirms Jesus' existence and that he was crucified. So you just ruined it. You should have just left it alone. But they won't do that. Now, I don't know if the Christians actually did it. So I want to be fair to the Christians also. I just had to put this out there because of my brother Jews. They're going through a lot. They're going through a lot, like we all are. So I know they're extremely sensitive towards anti-Semitism, and that is absolutely not my aim. I love the Jews just like I love the Christians, just like I love everyone else. But I have a close affinity to the Jews. We both worship the same God, and that's just a fact. Here we go, but I don't really care. You guys are going to say I'm kissing their tail. You guys are going to have all your opinions about me, and that's just fine. I'll say it again. I love the Jews just as much as I love the Christians. I almost wish that I was born a Jew because I respect how they abide by all the laws so well, and I haven't been even taught to respect the Sabbath. Just as easy as that. They taught me that the Sabbath was on Sunday. And, we don't keep the Feast of the Tabernacles. We don't keep Hanukkah or any of the high holidays for that matter. And I hate that about how I was raised in Christianity. I absolutely despise those facts because I feel like God needs to be worshiped in the right way. Again, I consider myself Yahudim because I cannot be a Jew born. My mom was not a Jew. I was not raised as a Jew, so I cannot call myself a Jew. But I recognize that the Ethiopian Jews are revered as well as the Ashkenazi and everyone else. So I've adopted that term as respect to the Jews. I just want to be clear on that, and I really don't care what you guys think. Now, that out the way. I'm only saying this because we talked about Josephus, and I know how sensitive people are. So let's get back. Proof that he didn't exist, we already kind of went over all of the things that, there's no grave, there's no grave site, there's no burial site, we have no DNA evidence, all the rest of those things. I think we went over those things. There's no real proof other than the word of mouth from credible people that actually had no interest in lying about the situation. That's what we have. And when you go and you look, you can Google it, you can go on ChatGPT or any of the AI search engines, and you can put in, it's more likely than not that Jesus actually existed. So this is good news for us. But we also have to take in consideration that you can't actually prove that he existed. It must be believed in. But you cannot allow another person to take control of your mind. You have to believe these things for yourself. You have to. This is the reason why I went so hard in examining these things. Now, for the next thing is the understanding that Jesus was God. Now, I'm not going to go back over that. Maybe I'll do it in a whole nother video, but you guys can watch all types of debates on YouTube about this situation. I'll tell you what I believe personally. I believe that Jesus was God, and I'll tell you why. Because I believe that understanding that Jesus was God would tell you how to follow Jesus. Jesus said, I am the way. Jesus gave up all the miracles and things that he did, and he gave honor to his Father. How was he the Father and God at the same time? These things have to be, like I said, I'm not going to go into a long drawn out story about that. Like I said, you can go watch my boy King Tazariot, the Hebrew Israelite. He debates this thing so good that I haven't seen anybody prove him wrong, and he doesn't believe that Jesus was God. You can bring up everything in the Bible. He doesn't believe that Jesus is God. I don't agree with him, but like I said, this is something that you have to discern for yourself. Now, let's get into this man here. Who knows who this man is? This is King James. Now, there's a lot of people that said, just like Jesus, that this man was a black man. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I will kind of touch on it in this video on why I believe that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave that alone too. But I believe that Jesus was a black man. I have my reasons for believing that. I still haven't confirmed for a fact that this man, King James, was a black man. But maybe I can go into that briefly. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I'm speaking very extemporaneously in this video, and I hope I'm not rambling. I'm trying to stay on focus. So now let's get into this man, King James, and the King James Bible. Let's begin. Maybe this is big enough so I can see. In 1556, James was born to Mary, Queen of Scots, and Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. His childhood was marked by violence and political upheaval. His father was murdered when James was only a few months old. At less than a year later, his mother was forced to give up the Scottish throne. At just 13 years old, James became King of Scotland. Since he was only an infant, powerful nobles governed in his place. He grew up surrounded by political intrigue, assassination plots, and constant struggles over religion. These experiences shaped him into an intelligent but callous ruler who believed that a strong monarchy was necessary to keep peace. James received an exceptional education. He became fluent in several languages and developed interest in theology, philosophy, and politics, including one defending the idea that kings rule by divine appointment and others about witchcraft called demonology. In 1603, Elizabeth I died without children because James was her closest Protestant relative. He inherited the English throne, became James I of England while remaining James VI of Scotland. For the first time, the crown of England and Scotland were united under one monarchy, though they remained separate kingdoms. James hoped to bring religion, peace to England. Soon after becoming king, he met with a religious leader at the Hampton Court Conference. During the meeting, one proposal stood out: create a New England translation of the Bible that would be accepted throughout the kingdom. James approved the idea. He appointed around 50 scholars divided into committees to translate the scriptures from Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek into clear, formal English. They compared earlier English translations and worked carefully to produce a text suitable for public reading in churches. Again, I apologize for reading this. It's very small and very difficult for me to read on my phone. But at least I'm getting this video done. Let's continue. In 1611, the translation was published. It became known as the King James Version of the Bible, not because King James translated it himself, but because he authorized and supported the project. Over the next several centuries, it became one of the most influential books in the English-speaking world, shaping literature, language, worship, and culture. Our favorite word that we decided we wanted to learn today. James' reign was not without controversy. He believed strongly in the authorities of kings, leading to frequent conflicts with Parliament over power and finances. During his reign, the gunpowder plots sought to kill him and destroy Parliament by blowing up the House of the Lords, and its discovery is still remembered each year in Britain, Guy Fawkes Night. James died in 1625, Okay, he died not far after it was published. Remember that. After ruling Scotland for nearly 58 years and England for 22 years, his son Charles I succeeded him. Charles conflicted with Parliament. Oh, Charles's conflicts with Parliament eventually led to the English Civil War. Today, King James is remembered less for his political achievements than for lending his name to a Bible that has influenced generations. While he did not write or translate the scriptures himself, his decision to commission a new translation left a lasting mark on Christianity and in the English language that continues more than 400 years later. Now, what do we learn about King James? All right, we learned, first of all, he grew up around a lot of violence. His father was actually murdered when he was only a few years old, and he had to take the reins of being king when he was only 13. He was in line to be a king since he was an infant and raised by people that were shaping him to become king. So, if you guys can imagine what that was like, Europe was a very, very violent place. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but it's a known fact that Europeans are a very violent people. Let me put it to you this way. I'm not going to say that's a fact based on cognitive dissonance, and I don't want to cause too much pain, but it's documented that conflict is part of being a European, especially being a ruler. So he grew up with a lot of fear and a lot of head on a swivel, so to speak. He grew up around political intrigue and assassination plots. That should tell you enough. Constant struggles over religion is a very, very key thing. What were his struggles over religion? They said that he believed in demonology. He also believed that a king was a ruler based on a divine power. In other words, God chose the king and gave him his power. Now, this lines up with the way the Bible is written. And not saying that he wrote the Bible. It said that he just commissioned the Bible. What I'm saying is he agreed with those teachings. Like I said, this came out as a manuscript first, and then it was circulated in Latin. They said he could speak many different languages and was raised by nobles. So he obviously could understand, and he had access to Latin. And these Latin manuscripts that were written before he commissioned the Bible. He obviously understood that this manuscript needed to be published because he believed in what it said. So there's a lot of rumors that were around King James. The fact that he was gay, the fact that he was black. This is not the video to get into all of that. I'm reading here. I got this from Grok, not ChatGPT. I got this from Grok. So this is what it said. So let's just stay focused on what that is. He spoke about demonology. He also spoke about the divine power that's given to a king. Same like King David, Abraham, Isaac, Joseph, Jacob, his brother Esau, and the whole lineage all the way down to Jesus. Now, I'm giving you all of these videos that I put up in the last couple of days are all a precursor on me actually reading the Bible to you. I promise you, I will not be a preacher and interpret this Bible to you. I will just read it in the way that I understand. I'll give you my opinions on it, but I want you to read the Bible yourself. So, let's get back to King James. He was a callous ruler, okay? He believed that a strong monarchy was important in keeping peace. You know, like I said, in Europe, you can't be no sucker. That's one thing I could say about Europeans. They ain't no suckers. They're extremely manly and they're extremely war ready. I think it's important to say Queen Elizabeth was his mother. And when she died, Scotland and England were both united. This is what made Britain, okay? England and Scotland were united. If you guys know anything about England and Scotland, they were at war for a very long time. So this was extremely pivotal. There again, like I said before, about chattel slavery. His mom commissioned chattel slavery. This is important. The King James Version of the Bible went into publishing by Gutenberg after he died. These are another important facts. Understand? I'm cooking now, y'all. Trust me. I'm cooking on this video and I'm cooking in this car. I don't know if you guys can hear the background noise, but I've been sitting in this car all this time because I'm cooking. I'm really cooking. It's about 100 degrees out here. I digress. Let's move on. The Bible was not published all at once. It was written over many centuries. The earliest books of the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament were likely written between about 1200 BC and 400 BC. Those scholars debate the dates. I'm sorry, I can barely see this. Those scholars debate the dates. So, if you guys don't know, I'm sure you guys know, but I gotta say this as if I'm speaking to children. I hope that children may be listening to this. So BC, remember, is before Christ. It's before he was born. AD is after the death. I'm pretty sure that it means something else, but that's just the way I remember it. So it's 2026 now. So technically we're in 2026 AD. I hope I'm saying that right. But so if this was 1200 BC to 400 BC, that means that it was 12 to 400 years before Jesus was born. Okay? That's very important. Now that's the Old Testament. The books of the New Testament were written roughly around 50 to 100 after the death of Christ, AD. Okay? These are important. So the Old Testament, Jesus knew about. These first writings are called the Tanakh. Let's not get this confused with the Torah or the Talmud. The Tanakh are these first writings that they're talking about. Okay? The Torah, according to Wikipedia, the Torah is not the entire Old Testament, but the foundational parts of it. The Torah consists strictly of the first 5 books of Genesis to Deuteronomy. The Old Testament is a larger Christian collection that includes these 5 books along with 34 other historical, prophetic, and poetic books. Okay? Now, I think that needs to be clarified. Should I pull up what the Tanakh is? Let me pull that up. Give me 1 second. Okay, now, according to Wikipedia, the Hebrew Bible's canon, known as the Tanakh, is a closed collection of 24 books divided into 3 sections: the Torah, or the law, the Nevi'im, or the prophets, and the Ketuvim, or the writings. I'm sorry for butchering that. This canon was finalized over centuries, with the Torah beginning the first part, followed by the prophets, and finally the writings, with a process largely settled by the 2nd century CE, though some debate continues. The Tanakh is Judaism's foundational text, containing history, law, poetry, and theology, and is distinct from the Christian Old Testament canon, which includes additional books. Okay? So, I just want to keep that absolutely clear. Okay, so while we're around here, let me explain what the Talmud is. Okay, according to Wikipedia, the Talmud is the foundational text of the rabbinic Judaism and primary source of Jewish law, ethics, and traditions. It is a massive compilation of centuries of scholarly debates, legal rulings, and folklore, acting as a particular guide for daily life and theological thought. Okay? Now, let's talk about the Zohar. These books are important. I want you guys to understand what these books are so we can have a real dialogue. I want you guys to have a real understanding of all of these texts. So, the Zohar is the Hebrew word translated splendor, radiance, or brilliance. Okay? So, it is illumined. It is commonly used in 3 distinct contexts as the foundation text for Jewish mysticism. Okay? This involves Jewish mysticism as a given name, and occupationally as a misspelling of the Islamic Midland prayer. The Zohar, or Jewish mysticism, famously the Zohar, is the central foundational text of the Kabbalah. Okay? Written primarily in Arabic and medieval Hebrew, it is a collection of mystical commentaries on the Torah, exploring the nature of God, the universe, and the human soul, and spiritual illumination. Okay, so I'm going to land my plane right here. Okay, we're going to set up for the next video. I hope you guys have a great 4th of July. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. And prepare for my next installment. Okay? It's important. I'm going to start beginning to read out of the Bible. So, peace and blessings to y'all.